They said humans were nothing but stories. Old tales parents told their children when they misbehaved. Legends written in ancient texts that no one could fully translate anymore. Myths about warriors from a world of death who never surrendered. Who fought beyond any rational limit, who stood by their friends no matter the cost. The Valorans called them the Silent Warriors. The Centauri called them the Resistance Hunters. The Morphians called them the Never Defeated. Every species in the Galactic Coalition had stories about humans, but they all agreed on one thing. They disappeared 10,000 years ago, probably extinct. They probably were never real until the brat arrived. Until everything changed. The council chamber was silent. Too silent. Elder Counselor Tekrin looked around the table at 17 different species, all showing fear in their own way. The Valorans had their feathers pressed flat against their bodies. The Centaurian scales turned a deep gray. Even the Morphians, normally serene, shifted nervously. Admiral Siren of the Valoran fleet rose slowly. His uniform was torn. He had just returned from the battle at Kelro Station. "We lost another 70 ships today," he said, his voice weary. "The Bikrat adapt to every weapon, every tactic. They learn faster than we can fight." Someone at the table made a sound of anguish. Tekrin couldn't make out who. It didn't matter. They all felt the same. "How many ships do we have left?" Ambassador Khalees asked. The Morphian diplomat's voice was firm, but his hands trembled. Terran glanced down at his data tablet. Fewer than 200 warships between the 17 species and the Bikrat. Thousands of biological vessels, maybe tens of thousands. "We can't win this war." Thousands. The silence that followed was crushing. Everyone knew what came next. Evacuation plans. Choosing which worlds to save and which to abandon. Watching their civilization slowly die. Tekrin felt very old. He had lived 300 years. He had seen the coalition grow and prosper. And now he would see it end. "There might be another option," Tekrin said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. "It's probably nothing, just an old story. But we've exhausted all other possibilities." He projected an image onto the central screen. Lines of text appeared in an ancient galactic alphabet. The writing was so old that most species had forgotten how to read it. "This is from 10,000 years ago," Tekrin explained, "before the coalition even existed. When our species were just beginning to explore the stars, the records mention another species, one that all our ancestors encountered at some point." He paused, letting the weight of his next word settle. "They called them humans." "Humans." Terran frowned. "I've heard that name before, but only in children's stories, tales to scare little ones into behaving." "You're saying they were real?" Tekrin nodded slowly. "The records are incomplete. But every species has stories about them, and they all say the same thing. They came from a world of death, never to be seen again. They surrendered. They fought in ways that seemed impossible. Death worlds don't produce intelligent life," Commander Brex of the Canarans said. He was a military officer with many battle scars. "Gravity alone would crush any living thing. The atmosphere would be toxic. Predators would eat anything that evolved there." "That's what we all believed," Tekrin conceded. "But the ancient records are clear. Humans existed and then, about 10,000 years ago, they disappeared. No one knows why. Most historians believe they went extinct. And how does that help us?" Siren asked. Tekrin was about to answer when an urgent message came in. Captain Drimos of the scout ship Wandering Light appeared on the screen. Captain Sanzari looked shaken. "Council. We have a situation," Drimos said quickly. "We were mapping systems at the edge of explored space. We found something impossible." "Speak clearly." "Captain," Siren ordered. Drimos took a breath. We encountered a star system completely surrounded by a defensive grid. The technology is far beyond anything we've ever seen. Our sensors can't penetrate it. We sent a standard greeting message in ancient galactic common. He paused. We received a reply. The captain pressed a button. A recording played. The voice was clear and steady. It spoke in perfect ancient galactic common. Though the accent was odd, this is Commander Jake Holland of the Human Defense Fleet. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves and state your purpose. The council chamber erupted. Everyone was talking at once. Tekrin just stared at the screen. His hands were shaking. They're real, he whispered. The humans are real and they're still alive. Terran slammed his hand on the table. Captain Drimos, what is your current status? We are holding position outside your defensive perimeter, Drimos replied. They haven't fired on us, but I see weapon systems loading. Many weapon systems. What are their orders? Ambassador Kelly stood up. Tell them we need to talk to them. Tell them we need their help. Tell them the galaxy is dying and they may be our only hope. Demos nodded and cut the transmission. The council members looked at each other. For the first time in months, Tekrin saw something other than fear in their eyes. He saw hope, a small hope. But it was there. 3 days later, a message came from the human system. Commander Jake Holland agreed to meet with coalition representatives, but he made one thing very clear. The humans had isolated themselves for good reason. They didn't trust easily and wouldn't help unless they understood exactly what they were getting into. The coalition prepared a diplomatic team. It would be led by Ambassador Khalees. Lyra, a young Alteran scientist specializing in ancient history, begged to go with them. Ever since she was a child, she had dreamed of humans while reading old stories. Commander BRX was assigned as a military escort. He still didn't believe the humans could be as dangerous as the legend said. Before leaving, Tekrin took Khalees aside. Ancient records say that humans value honesty above all else, the elder advisor said. Tell them the truth. Don't hide how desperate we are. Don't make promises we can't keep. He paused, his ancient eyes very serious. And remember something important. If the legends are even partially true, humans are not like us. They think differently, they fight differently, they survive differently. Khalees nodded. She really believes they can help us. Tekrin looked at the stars. Somewhere the Bikrat were devouring another world. Somewhere coalition citizens were dying. And somewhere humans were waiting. I think, he said slowly, we are about to discover if the myths can save us. The diplomatic ship departed 2 hours later. It would take 5 days to reach the human system, 5 days to prepare their plea for help, 5 days to hope that the warriors of ancient legends were everything the story said. They assured us of 5 days for humanity to decide whether it wanted to fight again. The diplomatic vessel passed through the human defensive grid without incident. But Lyra noticed something that tickled her scales with nervousness. The weapons tracking her ship never switched off. Even when they were welcomed into human space, the defenses remained alert and ready. Commander Brex noticed it too. These humans don't trust easily, he murmured. Ambassador Kelly remained composed. And you would trust. If you had been isolated for 10,000 years, as they approached the star's third planet, Lyra gasped. Her instruments had to be wrong. They had to be. Ambassador. The readings from that planet are impossible, she said. The gravity is twice what my species can withstand. The atmospheric pressure would kill most of us. And look at the oxygen levels. That much oxygen is toxic. She looked up from her console, her voice trembling. This is a new class death world. Nothing intelligent. I should be able to live there. And yet, Khalees said softly, they live. The shuttle descended through the atmosphere. Lyra watched her instruments in disbelief. Thunderstorms raged over entire continents. Mountain ranges that would crush most life forms. Oceans with waves higher than temporary buildings, capable of ripping the paint off a starship. How did something evolve here? He whispered. Tougher than anything that tried to kill him, Breck said. For the first time, his voice held a hint of respect. They landed at a military installation. Gravity hit them the moment they stepped out of the shuttle. Lyra felt as if she were carrying 3 times her own weight. Breathing was difficult. Every movement required effort, and then the humans came out to greet them. They moved as if gravity meant nothing, as if breathing that toxic atmosphere was as natural as swimming in water. They weren't particularly large by galactic standards, with no natural armor, no visible weapons, just bipedal creatures in simple uniforms, but the way they moved, the confidence, the ease, they were apex predators on their homeworld. You could see it in their eyes. Commander Jake Holland stepped forward. He was tall, with dark hair turning gray at the temples. His eyes were sharp. They assessed. Nothing escaped them. Ambassador Kellis, he said in a common perfect galactic. Welcome to Earth. I apologize for the harsh conditions. We've prepared a habitat module where you'll be more comfortable. IAS. IAS. We've prepared the habitat module. Ambassador Kellis. His voice was polite, professional, but Lyra saw him position himself between his people and the visitors. Ready to act if necessary. Thank you, Commander, Kellis replied. We appreciate your willingness to meet with us. Let's talk straight, Jake said. You're here because you need something desperate enough to search for a species that has remained hidden for 10,000 years. I want to know what it is. They moved into the habitat module. Gravity normalized. The atmosphere became breathable. Lyra could finally think clearly. Kellis wasted no time. He projected screens showing the Bikrat advance. World after world consumed. Fleets destroyed. Billions dead. We're losing, Kellis said simply. The Bikratans are moving faster than we can respond. They have no weaknesses we can exploit. They won't accept any diplomacy. They just consume and move on. Jake studied the screens. His face remained neutral, but Lyra saw his jaw clench and they came to us. Why? Because ancient records say humans never surrendered, Lyra interjected. Because every species has stories of human warriors who fought beyond all logic. Because we're desperate, and you're our last hope. Jake stared at her for a long moment, then turned to his second-in-command, a woman named Captain Sarah Chen. What do you think, Sarah? I think they're telling the truth, Sarah said. And I think if we don't help them, the Vikrat will find us anyway. Jake nodded slowly. He turned back to the coalition representatives. I need to explain something to you, something about why we isolated ourselves in the first place. He gestured, and new screens appeared, images of ancient battles, humans fighting alongside other species. Then images of betrayal, political manipulation, wars started for resources. 10,000 years ago humanity was part of the galactic community, Jake said. We fought in their wars. We shared our technology. We thought we were building something good. Their voices hardened. Then we discovered they were using us. Our willingness to sacrifice ourselves was seen as a tool. A weapon to be pointed at any problem that needed solving. They sent us to die in conflicts that could have been resolved with diplomacy. They treated our soldiers as expendable. We learned that other species saw us as useful, but not as equals. The weight of that phrase hung in the air. So we left, Jake continued. We sealed our borders, hid our worlds behind defensive grids, and decided that if the galaxy only wanted us for war, then the galaxy wouldn't want us at all. I understand, Kellis said quietly. And I understand why you wouldn't trust us now, but I need you to understand something, too. Kellis continued. We're not asking you to die for us. We're asking you to stand with us as equals, as allies, not as tools or weapons, but as partners in the face of a common threat. Lyra spoke again. Commander, I've studied human history my entire life. I know what was done to your people, I know why you left, but I also know what humans are capable of when they choose to fight, not because they're ordered to, but because they believe it's the right thing to do. The coalition isn't perfect, she said. We make mistakes, but we're trying to build something worth defending. 17 species living together in peace, learning from each other, growing together. She held Jake's gaze. Isn't that worth fighting for? Jake was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. I need to consult with my people. This isn't a decision I can make alone. But I'll tell you this. If we decide to help, we'll do it on our terms. We're not your mercenaries, we're not your shock troops. We fight as equals, or we don't fight at all. Okay, Khalees said immediately. Give me 3 days, Jake said. I need to talk to Earth Command, to our leaders, and to my people. The coalition delegates were taken to comfortable quarters. The wait it was agonizing. Lyra spent her time studying everything she could about human culture. Brake analyzed the human military installations visible from orbit. Khalees prepared arguments and counterarguments. On the second day, Jake invited them to tour a human city. Lyra walked through streets teeming with millions of humans. They laughed, argued, and lived their lives completely unaware that their leaders were deciding whether to go to war. She saw children playing in parks, families eating together, artists creating, scientists working. A civilization that had chosen peace over conflict, and she understood why they hesitated. You've built something beautiful here, she told Khalees that night. We're asking you to risk everything. Yes, Khalees admitted. But if the Bykrat keep advancing, this will be destroyed anyway. At least this way you have a chance. On the third day, Jake summoned them to a military command center. The room was filled with high-ranking human officers. Admiral Elisa Rodriguez, Supreme Commander of Human Defense Forces, General Marcus Chen, Chief of Earth's Ground Forces, and Dr. Sophie Bennett, Senior Scientific Advisor. We've made a decision, Jake said. The coalition delegates gasped. Humanity will stand with the Galactic Coalition against the Bykrat threat, Jake continued. But we have conditions. First, we fight as equals. Our officers will have the same authority in joint operations. Our strategies will receive equal consideration. Our people will be treated with the same respect as any member of the coalition. Second, when this war is over, humanity will have a permanent seat on the Coalition Council. No more isolation, no more hiding, but also no more being used. Third, we share technology freely, both ways, with no secrets, no holding anything back. Agreed, Kelly said. Without hesitation. Agreed to everything. Admiral Rodriguez stepped forward. Then let's begin. We have a war to win. Preparations began immediately. Human fleet commanders met with coalition admirals. Scientists shared data on Bykrat biology and tactics. Soldiers trained together, learning each other's methods. And that's when the real understanding began. Lieutenant Ben Carter trained alongside Centauri soldiers. When they stopped, having reached their physical limits, he kept going. Why do you keep going? Silex asked. Are you hurting yourself in combat? Either you push beyond pain or you die, Ben said. We simply train the body to ignore the signals that say, stop. Silex looked at him, fascinated. That's crazy. Ben smiled. Maybe. But it works. Captain Ryan Foster taught coalition pilots aggressive maneuvers. He's asking us to fly into enemy fire, a Valoran protested. Yes, because the Vikrat expect evasion. Direct attacks create confusion. That's when you fire. Ryan opened simulations. We make the enemy react to us. Though it might seem suicidal, Dr. Sophie Bennett worked with Lyra and other coalition scientists. They were analyzing bicrat biology, looking for weaknesses. They adapt too quickly, Lyra said, frustrated. Every time we find a vulnerability, they evolve and overcome it. So we have to attack them in ways they can't adapt to, Sophie said. Like what? Unpredictability. We humans have a saying, if you don't know what you're doing, your enemy can't predict your moves. Lyra's scales changed color. A sign of confusion. That doesn't make sense. Tactical unpredictability leads to chaos. Exactly. Sophie smiled. And chaos is something we're very good at handling. Admiral Lisa Rodriguez met with the coalition's military leadership. She spread tactical screens across the conference table. You've been fighting the bicrat like it's a conventional war, she said, trying to predict their movements, establishing defensive lines, controlling territory. That's sound military doctrine, Admiral Siren said. For rational enemies, Lisa conceded. But the bicrat aren't rational, they're a hive mind optimized for consumption. They'll always take the most efficient path to resources. She marked several systems on the map. So we give them what looks like an efficient path, but we turn it into a trap. We sacrifice territory to lure them in, and then we descend upon them with everything we've got. That would mean abandoning populated worlds, Terran said, horrified. We evacuate first, Lisa said firmly. No one gets left behind, but we have to think like predators, and predators know how to set traps. The coalition officers exchanged glances. This wasn't their way of fighting, not their style, but they were losing. Perhaps it was time to try something different. How long will it take to prepare? Furin asked. Our fleets can be ready in 2 weeks, Lisa said. But we need intelligence. We need to know the bicrat positions, their movement patterns. You'll get everything you have, Khalees promised. Commander Jake Holland worked directly with the coalition ground forces. He taught them what humans called asymmetric warfare. You can't match the Vikrat in strength, he explained to the assembled officers. They'll always have more ships, more soldiers, more resources, so you have to fight smart. He showed them images of historical human conflicts, guerrilla tactics, ambush strategies, psychological warfare. You make them afraid, you strike them where they least expect it. You make them distrust every shadow, every corner. You make them pay for every inch of ground they take. Commander Breck studied the tactics with growing respect. This isn't honorable combat, Jake wouldn't admit. It's survival combat, and against an enemy like the Big Wrath. Survival is all that matters. He looked at the officers. You've been fighting with honor, following rules of engagement, trying to minimize casualties. That's admirable. But the Vikrat don't care about honor, they only understand consumption and death. So we taught you about death. The human way. The training continued for 2 weeks. The coalition soldiers learned to push their limits. The pilots learned to fly like mad. The scientists learned to think outside their carefully crafted methodologies. The commanders learned to embrace calculated chaos, and the humans learned about the coalition, about 17 species that had maintained peace for 2,000 years, about cultures that valued art and diplomacy over conflict, about the beauty of what they were fighting to protect. Lyra and Sophie became close friends. They spent long nights talking about their worlds, their hopes, their fears. I always dreamed that humans were real, Lyra said one night. When I was little, I read old stories and imagined meeting one of you. I thought you'd be monsters. And now? Sophie asked. Now I think you're the most terrifying and most beautiful species I've ever known, Lyra said sincerely. You scare me. But I'm glad you're here. Sophie smiled. Sometimes we scare ourselves with the things we're capable of when pushed, but we try to use that capacity to protect rather than destroy. That's what the story said, Lyra replied, that humans were ferocious, but also loyal, dangerous, but also compassionate. I thought that was a myth. I didn't think a species could do both. We contain multitudes, Sophie said softly. We can be monsters, we can be heroes. We're usually both at the same time. Jake Holland and Khalees spent many hours talking about strategy, but they also talked about leadership, about the weight of command. How do you do it? Khalees asked one night. How do you send people to die? You never get used to it, Jake said. Every name weighs on you, every face haunts you. But you do it because the alternative is worse. The alternative is to let them down, to not protect them, to make their sacrifice pointless. Jake looked at the stars. When I give an order that I know might kill someone, I make sure it's an order worth dying for. I make sure that if they fall for something real, something that matters. Khalees nodded slowly. I've been doing this for 60 years, and I still don't know if I'm doing it right. The day you stop questioning yourself, Jack said, is the day you should stop leading. 2 weeks passed. The combined human coalition fleet was ready. Thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of soldiers. The largest military force the coalition had ever assembled. And it all pointed toward a single objective, stopping the Vikrat. Trying to do so, Admiral Rodriguez was on the bridge of the human battleship Indomitable. Around her, human and coalition officers worked side by side. All ships reporting ready, said Captain Sarah Chen. Lisa looked at the tactical display. The Vikrat were advancing toward Victoria Prime, one of the coalition's most important worlds. 3 billion people, centuries of irreplaceable culture, and right in their path. Vikrat. Send the order. Lisa said. All ships. Jump to Victoria Prime. Time to see if legends can become reality. The fleet leapt. Thousands of ships appearing simultaneously in the Victoria system. The Vikrat bioships were already there, circling the planet, beginning their consumption. On the surface of Victoria Prime, the citizens looked to the sky, saw the coalition fleet arrive, and saw something else. Ships with unfamiliar designs, ships that moved differently, ships crewed by the species of ancient legends. Those are them, someone whispered. Humans, another exhaled. Humans are real, and they came to help us. Hope blossomed across the planet. For the first time in months, people believed that perhaps they would survive. In space. The battle began. The Vikrat bioships moved to engage them. They expected the coalition to establish defensive positions, to protect the planet from a distance, to fight cautiously. Instead, the human ships accelerated straight toward them. All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez. Lisa's voice echoed through the fleet. No defensive lines, no cautious engagements, we hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we showed them what happens when they threaten our friends. The human fleet crashed into the brat like a hammer. Kinetic weapons firing, energy shields at maximum, every ship pushing its engines to the limit. The coalition ships followed, emboldened by the human aggression. Centauri cruisers, which had been fighting defensively for months, suddenly found themselves charging into battle. Valoran carriers, which had kept their distance, moved into close combat. The Vikrat adapted quickly. Their bioships changed formations. They concentrated fire on the human vessels, but the humans did not yield, did not retreat, they fought like creatures with nothing to lose and everything to protect. Lieutenant Amy Price led a squadron of fighters in impossible maneuvers, loops, dives through fields of fire that should have killed her 10 times over. Her coalition wingman tried to follow. He couldn't. He fell behind. Price, we can't match your flight, the pilot said over the communicator. Then don't match it, Amy replied. Cover my tail. I'll be the chaos. You be the stability. It worked. Amy drew fire, created confusion. Her wingmen brought down disoriented Vikrat ships. Together they were more effective than either would have been separately on the bridge of the Indomitable. Damage reports came in. The Vikrats were concentrating fire on the larger ships. Shields failing, Sarah Chen reported. Hull breach on Deck 7. Keep firing, Lisa ordered. Aim for that bio-battleship. They fired their main guns. The bioship's hull absorbed the impact.